But we're going to move on into our last topic. And Brandon, before we answer the question that we have set up for this segment, I'm giving you the hardest job in the world. You are Ed Orgeron. So put yourself into the mind of Ed, into the voice of Ed. You have to make your sales pitch for Lane Kiffin to leave the Crimson Tide and come over to the Tigers. What do you do? And you can even do the voice if you want to.
Hey, Lane. Yeah, Ed. Yeah. Want to come coach for me over here at LSU? Think that's where I'm at? No, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good over here, having a pretty cushy time with, Nick Saban. We win all the time. Yeah, but want to come over here, though? Probably be a lot more fun. Maybe we'd finally be able to beat that Alabama team, huh? No, that's fine, Ed. I'm still having a fun time kicking your ass. Well, that's true. Talk to you later. Yeah.
So really, there is no sale.
No, there's
pitch,
no
is what
sale
you're
pitch. I just don't think it's going to happen. I know your question. It's going to be: should Lane Kiffin leave and go to LSU or possibly go?
He can just read my mind.
Possibly go anywhere else. And
that's that co-host relationship.
And I was going to say, I know you're going to cream me for having an awful Ed Orgeron, but literally all you had to do is get a deep voice, talk like you don't know what you're talking about, but still be kind of smart, and you're Ed Orgeron. But I think that you guys still cream me. But I think that why leave? That's my biggest thing. Why leave? And it's not because you become and don't say, oh well, he's become so he's just been there for so long and he's become content. Yeah, I'd be content too if I was working for Alabama, winning all the time. Because what's the ultimate goal? You're supposed to win national championships, right? Alabama's been giving you that possibility for years. And people do want to go and have new challenges and things like that, but at the same time, why necessarily do that when what you're doing is working? And I think that that's something right now for Lane Kiffin is that you have a very good head coach. You have a great coach in Nick Saban. You get really good players. You have some of the best recruits. You got a great program and a community that absolutely loves everything about Alabama football. I mean, that's like their Sunday. They'd rather watch that than anything NFL.
Well, and
why? But why? Why would you leave that to go anywhere else?
My whole thing, and this was while we were watching the Michigan-Ohio State game before the Fast Break podcast, me, Dave, and Sean were kind of discussing it. And my whole thing when it came down to Lane Kiffin leaving for LSU, my first thought was exactly what you said. Why? Why would you do that? Because to me, if I was Lane Kiffin, there'd be only two ways I leave that job. A, it's my dream job. Like Tom Herman at Texas, dream job. It's either that or like you said, it's a job where it's like, okay, I need a new challenge in life. This is what it's going to be. But I don't think that going to an LSU team where you're staying on the same level, offensive coordinator, you're just going to a team that doesn't win that much. That's not the challenge that I think Lane Kiffin is looking for.
And you're
to me, a challenge would be, hey, you know what? I kind of failed as a head coach, especially when I was at USC. And really, it was my dad bringing me down, but I couldn't fire my dad. You can't fire Monty Kiffin because his defense ain't doing well. So really, I was between a rock and a hard place. That's the challenge, I think, that would pull Lane Kiffin away, is a head coaching job where it's like, you know what? I do want another crack at it. I just want to know that I can do it.
But here's the thing, though, too, is that do you think that, he's obviously a great coordinator, really good offensive coordinator, and that's been what he has been good at in his coaching career. And then, of course, we saw how it was with USC, and he had his ups and his downs, and ultimately it just wasn't great. But I think that, do you think that he's come to the point where he's in kind of in his life and his time in coaching and say, and he's still a young guy, and say, you know what? I know what I'm good at, and that's being an offensive coordinator. And I know where I struggle. He may say, you know what? I don't want to do the things that Nick has to do. I don't want to do the things that a head coach will have to do. I've been there. I've done that. I've dealt with it. I like what I'm doing right here and being an offensive coordinator and being that offensive mind where I strictly only focus on the offensive side of things. He may be right there. Mm-hmm. He may be thinking just that. He may not want to go into coaching again. At least,
you mean head coaching?
Head coaching, excuse me. Head coaching, yeah. I think that, obviously, no one can speak for him except for Lane Kiffin. I'm sure we'll try and have him on the show. Mm-hmm. But I think that it comes down to what does he want to do? And what does he think he's going to be the most successful at? And he very well may be on the other side on where you say, he may just want to have one more crack just to say, you know what, I can do it. But it's got to be if he does want that, it's got to be with the right system. You can't just go for any Joe Schmo. You've got to go in the right system where you think that you're going to be able to have success.
And that's why I lean more towards the dream job, because really at Alabama, unless they kick him out the door, you've got a cushy setup, bro.
But also, how is that
a cushy setup?
How is that not the dream job? How is that not the dream job, though?
It all depends on, like you said, what's going on in Lane's head. And if Lane's perfectly fine being an offensive coordinator, then stay at Alabama, because there ain't going to be no better job than that, especially with Nick Saban there. But if there is that one thing where it's like, you know what, I want another crack at being a head coach, then that's what you leave for. And you only leave if it's the perfect situation. If you're like, this is a grade A situation, I'm set up for success here, and I feel like I can be successful doing that job, because you could always say, nah, you know what, not comfortable with that. I'm going to stay here at Alabama. Can I throw out another possibility? This could be a long shot, but it could be another possibility. Maybe he sits there after, doesn't go to LSU this year, stays at Alabama a year or two, and goes, you know what? I'm a pretty damn good coordinator. I want one crack at being a coordinator in the NFL. I'm going back. Not as a head coach, not like I was with the Raiders. I'm going back as a coordinator, trying to be an offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that could be interesting. That would really be taking the leap. That would be really taking the jump, but I think that he would be able to find someone, and the Cleveland Browns would probably be open to having some offense. I think that it's all about the right system.
Or just wait till the Patriots need an offensive coordinator and go right working with Tom Brady.
or as you would say, not Tom Brady, and it would be Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, Garoppolo.
Yeah,
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Absolutely. I think that it's an interesting situation. I think it is, and I think that Lane Kiffin really has, when he came out of USC, people were like, he's done, he sucks. Then he went to Alabama, and they're like, man, he's good. He's really good. But I think that people realized he needs to stay as a coordinator. I think that people, you and me, I think that I look at it and I say, he's really, really good as an offensive coordinator. I think that that's where his strengths are. And again, you're a head coach. You deal with a lot of BS. You deal with the press conferences. You deal with the stupid questions, the good questions. You deal with the stories that break on the kid that just did marijuana on your team, and you're going, I didn't know that.
Or gets arrested for handguns in the backseat of his car.
Sure, that sounds very familiar. And then, or something like that. Then you have to deal with the defense, the offense, special teams, all those things. Some guys don't want that. Some guys do not want to deal with all that. They just want to be able to. They want to be able to just specialize in what they enjoy doing. And I think that right now Lane Kiffin has found that. And let's say this. If Alabama wins the national championship again this year, back-to-back years.
Why would you go to LSU then? Why would you go over to the conference where it's like, well, I'm not going to win a national championship over there as long as the team I'm on now is rolling as high as it is?
I was going to say, actually, if he does it 2 years in a row then maybe he says, you know what?
It gets boring.
I've won twice, 2 years in a row. I know that I'm good here. I know I love this program. I love these people. But maybe it's time to try something else. But at the same time, I almost think I'm not exactly sure where Lane Kiffin is in age-wise. He seems like a younger guy, but I think that, really it's maybe right before retirement or maybe his final job, he wants to go off and be a head coach.
41.
He's young.
41.
He's young. He could probably retire next year, but I think that that's when I would do it. If Alabama were to say win it again this season,
Nick Saban's 65.
So he doesn't seem that old either.
In the coaching world, relatively young. Relatively young for coaches.
So I think that that's when I would say it. If Alabama were to win it again this season, that's when I'd start going, I want it back-to-back years. Maybe I could try going for something new.
You want to know who else is 41? Tom Herman. That's another thing that, maybe the age thing, looking into it now, that means when Lane Kiffin took over his first college job was, let's see, so 41 is 2016 season, so 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, that would have been, 7 years ago? So he would have been 34 around that time, if my math serves me right. Whereas you look at basically Tom Herman got his first head coaching job 2 years ago when he was 38. 34 and 38, there's a lot more experience that you could have in those 5 years. Maybe it was a thing of Lane Kiffin. He was a young head coach. Maybe it was, I was just too young to be a head coach. Now I've been an offensive coordinator here. I'm learning, I've learned things from Nick. I don't see him staying at the same level going somewhere else. If he's going to leave Alabama, I see it as he's going to be a head coach somewhere. That's because I'm trying to put myself in that situation. I know you're probably saying, but Ricky, you're not Lane. But if I was in that situation, I wouldn't leave just to stay stagnant at the same position. I would leave to the bigger challenge would be head coaching and finding a position that fits me to a T, not just leaving to leave and go to any head coaching position. But in the end, I think that to answer the question, no, Lane Kiffin does not leave Alabama to go to LSU. And I think you're on the same boat as I am.
I believe so.
Well, and this is where I say let us know down below, down in the comment section. But before I wrap up this podcast 110%, we're going to do what we do every single time here on the Primetime Podcast. And Brandon, it's time for Swanee's final thoughts.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I think that it's interesting, is the fact that we are deep into college football right now, and we are right on the cusp
We're in the thickets
of the college football playoffs. And for me, I think that that's exciting. I think it's exciting. Ricky and I, obviously, we love doing this show all the time, even at the beginning of the season, even in the off season when it's tough to try and find topics. But I think that it comes down to who is the better team, who has the better schedule, who has the better record. I think that it's really difficult when you start to get into this very nitpicky time of when you have to be able to go and say, well, did you do this? Did you do this? Maybe they beat so-and-so. Oh, they were 7 then. They're not in the rankings now. It gets tough. And we were right there. We were right there earlier. That's when Ricky and I were talking about in our first segment. So my final thought is this. If it's you, what's the biggest thing for you? What will keep a team out? What will put a team in? And we're talking the teams that are really in it have a chance. So I'll throw them out there. We've got Alabama, Ohio State, Washington, Clemson. Those are the teams that people are looking at as probably your first 4.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're looking at Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Colorado, and I think that's it. Of those teams, who are you putting in? Why are you putting them in? What makes the case? What makes the best case? Because at the end of the day, we could all be on the committee. They just haven't asked us yet. But I think the interesting thing is that everyone has a different opinion, everyone has a different view, and that's what makes it so exciting, but yet so frustrating at the same time. So please, let me know what you think. Ricky and I talked about it in the first segment of who kind of we would have in there and who we would have on the cusp as well. But please, let me know in the comment section. Let us know what you think, who you're putting in, who you're leaving out, and why.
Well, this is where I now get to wrap everything up in a complete fashion. Thank you guys for listening or watching the Primetime Podcast this week. Let us know down below what you think of anything we talked about today. You can follow both of us and Most Valuable Podcast on Twitter. All of those are in the description. I want to thank you guys for checking out this podcast. Make sure to look at also patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. You want to help support the channel other than hitting the like and subscribe button, check out Patreon. You can give us a little bit of money to make sure the quality is better for you guys, the fans. But hey, if you're sitting there going, you know what, Ricky, I don't have any money, just sharing the videos and podcasts helps us out too. So I want to thank you guys for listening and watching. Have a great day, but as always, have a great day, everybody. I messed it up, but you guys know what I mean. I said
always,
it twice. I said it
have
twice.
A good day, everybody.
Thanks, Brandon. You got me.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter @MostValuablePod for more great podcasts.